In recent history, the Democrat Party has created the illusion that their agenda and their policies are what's best for black people. Somehow it's been forgotten that the Republican Party was founded in 1854 as an abolitionist movement with one simple creed, that slavery is a violation of the rights of man. Frederick Douglass called Republicans the party of freedom and progress, and the first Republican president was Abraham Lincoln, the author of the Emancipation Proclamation. It was Republicans in Congress who authored the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, giving former slaves citizenship, voting rights, and due process of law.
There are wars going on in America over any number of controversial issues. More often than not, these are wars being created to stir up anger and create more than the occasional sideshow to the real issue. However, what is happening to those African Americans who reveal to friends, colleagues, and certain groups they are not Democrats and seek another political path is all too real, and it is being severely underreported. Until now. Welcome into MidPoint, former president of the NAACP chapter in Garland, Texas, Baptist minister, member of FreedomWorks, and one who can speak from personal experience about this issue, Reverend C.L. Bryant joins us today. Reverend, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Ed, for having me on.
Reverend, I want to go to what happened in Las Vegas recently, and I want to get your take on this immediately. FreedomWorks, your group, allowed to set up a booth at the NAACP's 105th annual convention in Las Vegas. Now, according to some, you were respectfully questioned about your beliefs in being a member of the Republican Party. Other websites say that it was openly hostile. It was an awful display of intolerance when an African-American woman approached your booth and talked to you, and I believe you also had Deneen Borelli who was there. Could you set us straight and give us your perspective on exactly what happened?
What was on display, Ed, it was an example of a total brainwashing of a group of people over a period of time. 105 years the NAACP has been in existence. And I do believe that the founders of the organization would be appalled at the condition of black folks in 2014 America. Dr. Thomas Sowell, in my movie, Runaway Slave, said these words himself, I quote, "Even under slavery itself, you had more black babies being born to two-parent families than you do today." That is shocking. And the NAACP has stood by in the midst of this type of destruction of the black family and have actually been co-conspirators in that destruction.
Well, let me ask this. With regard to that incident itself, in your opinion, were you treated respectfully or was it something else?
It was totally disrespectful because we were there to participate and bring a broader view to this particular conversation. We were there to liberate the conversation. Should black people all think the same way? Should we all act the same way? Should we all talk the same way on various issues? According to the NAACP and the way we were treated there, yes, we should. There should be no diversity among us. We should all be the same people, and every size should fit us as far as progressive liberalism and as far as progressive thought patterns are concerned. And so, yes, we were very much disrespected for our conservative views.
Who in the NAACP is setting this sort of a tone, and where are they taking their marching orders from, if anybody?
Well, I do believe, and I did say this, the question was asked, has the NAACP become an arm of the Democrat Party? And that was vehemently denied. If in fact you could see the entire clip, the entire portion of what went on, you would understand that there was a very heated exchange that went on. We, of course, tried to maintain our composure in the midst of this, but the fact of the matter is they are taking their marching orders from progressive liberals. They have become an arm of progressive liberal politics. They won't admit it, but it's very apparent, it is obvious that that is going on.
Then if there is an illusion of what democratic ideals are, according to some people here, we see a tremendous amount of groundswell in the country from African Americans wanting to learn more about their government, wanting to get more involved here. In your opinion then, why then are members of the NAACP able to push these people, to push your fellow African Americans into a belief system that you think is, or what many people would believe, is racist and bigoted?
There's a certain tribalism that goes on very much in the African American or the black community. I don't necessarily adhere to that African American label, but let's, for the sake of conversation, use colors as we do in America.
Okay.
There's a certain tribalism that goes on in this country, and many times it is co-opted from the church through the black preacher. What he says goes. There is a phenomenon that is very common and to black people, and it's this. If you don't go along with the same type of ideals that the tribe goes along with, then you can be ostracized by your family. You can be ostracized by your church and your community if, in fact, you sing some different song or march to a different drummer. It is one that is born out of slavery in this country. Well, truly, we once were all in the same boat as African Americans. But here in the year 2014, there is not one thing that I can name in this country that my color, the color of my skin, would stop me from doing if I wanted to do it. And so there's a diversity that has occurred among our people, like all other Americans, that the NAACP is failing to recognize.
Would it be your opinion then that the NAACP, and again, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I'm taking what you've said and what other people have said as well, that in many ways the NAACP is enslaving black people across America?
I charge them with being co-conspirators in the continuing bondage of a group of people. There are many who, in fact, have run away. My movie, Runaway Slave, speaks of that very thing. It took courage for that slave to say, I don't want the master's food. I don't want his housing. I don't want his clothing. All I want is my freedom. And so it was with the Mayflower Pilgrims when they came here. They didn't have any guarantees that they would ever succeed or even make it to this country. And so it doesn't matter if your ancestors came to these shores on the Mayflower or if they came here in the hulls of slave ships like mine did. In the DNA of every true American and what's available to every true American in this country is a thirst for liberty and freedom, and you can have it. But you can lose it if, in fact, we continue to embrace the types of policies that come from progressive liberalism.
The Democratic Party talks about the Republicans, and they admonish the Republicans for voter ID laws. They say that this is an attempt to disenfranchise black voters. This despite the fact that, according to several reports, black turnout actually increased the last cycle in Georgia and Indiana, two states with some of the toughest voter ID laws. Is this just, in your opinion, an example of the Democratic lie that is being told to black Americans?
It is an emotional talking point that in many cases does work. When you start telling black folks that churches will burn, that the Klan will march, and that they won't be able to vote, you're playing to their emotions. It is a very twisted, it is a very sick way to keep people in a certain pattern, but it has been used effectively. And I do charge also so many black churches who are being tools of this type of political rhetoric. I charge black ministers who, in fact, engage in this type of political rhetoric, knowing that these are lies, because there is no way that you can have a child in school. There's no way that you can have a checking account. There's no way that you can travel on airplanes or buses without some type of ID. And so this is totally ridiculous.
I have a very few seconds left. In Florida, near Jacksonville, a Republican congressional candidate's campaign sign vandalized by white-face paint last week. Overwhelmingly Democratic voter registration. I'm going to let our folks see it here. Glo Smith had this happen to her. It was her billboard. It was white-faced over. It is this sort of idea that makes people think that blacks are not wanted if you're a Republican in the black community. 30 seconds. How do you overcome this, and how do you then defeat it?
By telling our story. The story of the Republican Party, the story of conservatism and the core values that black people have traditionally embraced are a great success story. In fact, not only is America the greatest success story that the world has ever known, Black people in this country should stop looking at themselves as victims, but start looking at ourselves as victors. We are still here through it all, regardless of what has happened, regardless of what the trials of America, the trials of life, whatever has happened, we're still here. And may I remind everyone
10
that
seconds.
the story of mankind is the story of human tragedy. And we're no different, except for the fact that we have overcome here in America. And we can continue.
Reverend Bryant, thank you so much for your time. We will do it again, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Still on the dance card, how does this latest Obamacare ruling affect doctors? It's next.